Hi guys, this is my first video in like ages. What you see behind me is the Blue Lake, and I'm here to just talk about life, my journey. This video gets uploaded on my birthday, and right now it's currently November 14th, and this goes live on the 15th, which is my birthday. Where do I begin? Let's go back to high school. So in high school, I did examination English, calculus, physics, chemistry, and digital technologies. So like computer science. Physics was definitely my favorite subject. Like, you get to apply the math that you've learned in motion pretty much. And so was digital technologies. That was a strength that I just kept learning, kept growing. I think my strength is IT, but also mental health. It's been quite a journey over these past 6 years being diagnosed with a mental health disorder, and here is just what I've learned in the past 25 years. What you see behind me is actually the Blue Lake. It's not green screen or anything. Yeah. Up here is the location of just my visuals. And so yeah, I think going back to high school is definitely where I learned or had the foundational knowledge of things that would help me out along the way. So if I bring it back to English class, we did things called 2.9s, which showed your perception of a text or a movie that you watched. And that was one of my favorite things to do. So the 2.9 got you to get your perception of things, and that definitely helped me in life to figure out when I learned something, what I perceived and what I learned from it, as well as relating it to the outside world, which I started to become good at. On my first 2.9, I got an achieved, and the teacher said, "Hey Vince, this isn't a review, this is your perception of the text and how it could relate to the outside world." And so that knowledge kind of just applied to everything. When I learned something new, I tried to relate it to the outside world. And that tool helped me to start learning a bit more and deriving things from anything that I read or watched. Now, English class. I actually enjoyed it quite a lot in year 13. We had to do speeches, and you can probably like look back on my Facebook or like even YouTube. I loved my speech because I memorized like all of it, and I just had a hiccup of not remembering it like just in the middle. I revisit that speech so much. Like, I actually go back and watch that speech like every year, because to me it's quite self-inspiring. Like, I actually loved English class because every text and every video or movie that I started watching, I kind of learned a lot from and extracted the learnings and teachings from the video or movie or text. So yeah, I think my mental health journey kind of started with a bit of lowness, a bit of depression. In year 13, I got into calculus, and to me, that felt like I felt like I didn't belong. Like, all these people in calculus, it felt like they knew what they were doing and I didn't. So pretty much the teacher made it so that we couldn't talk to each other and we couldn't work together, and that kind of just, it didn't feel right with me. When going into the calculus class, to me it felt like my own hell, because I felt isolated. I couldn't talk to my peers, and I benefited a lot from talking with other people because they showed me how to do things correctly or in their own way. And essentially, it kind of gave me a sense of lowness because that sense of belonging wasn't there. I felt like calculus wasn't for me, and the way he taught it was just not to my understanding. And I kind of started wagging the class actually, because I just didn't feel good about being in that class. I thought about reaching out to the counselor, the student counselor, and talking about it, but I don't know what happened. I just didn't go out and talk with anyone for that matter, and I just kept to myself. And in hindsight, that wasn't the smartest decision. I should have asked for help. And I was also thinking of quitting calculus just because I felt like I wasn't learning anything really. But then it came to the exams. When it came to the first two assignments, I actually did pretty well. And that kind of boosted my confidence. Hey, I think I belong in this class, but I'm not sure. So 2 excellences for the first assignments. And then when the midterms came around, I did pretty well, a merit. But then towards the end of the year, so my grandmother actually passed away on my dad's side a week just before the exam, and that kind of wrecked me because to me my grandma was kind of like a second mother to me, because whilst my mom was coming to New Zealand and setting up a life for us, my grandma was the one alongside my dad which was who would take care of me. And yeah, that kind of hit so close to home. And I could, towards the end of the year, those were my exams. And I kind of prioritized my exams to say, hey, I didn't do too well just before the exams. I need to actually fulfill the exams. So instead of going back to Philippines and regathering, I did my exams, and it kind of went terrible. In my calculus exam, my result was 1 mark on each paper, 1 mark off passing. That hit me so hard, because when I got the test marks back in January, I cried because I felt like I wasn't good enough. 1 mark off passing each single paper. I spent 3 hours, 1 hour per paper in the final exam. For me, my study was, I couldn't focus. Like, I read my notes, but I couldn't take it in. I was reading, but I wasn't actually taking in any information. And so I was actually given a scholarship before the end of the year, a $5,000 scholarship to the University of Waikato. And that kind of jeopardized my scholarship, because if I hadn't passed calculus, I wouldn't get into engineering. So what happened? I actually went to summer school, which is an excellent way to actually reintegrate yourself back into that learning space. Just before that, the learning came in university. So what happened in summer school? I actually met a lot of friends. I had a lot of time on my hands and freedom from my parents, because this was my first time away from school, from home actually, in a university environment where we have dorms. And so after that initial marks that I got back, a week later, I was straight into summer school. And it was one of the best things to do. Like, sure, summer school, oh, you may feel dumb because you're in summer school, but nah, it was amazing. So, summer school, I studied calculus and algebra in summer school, and it was one of the most enjoyable experiences, and the school helped with that. So yeah, if you kind of put it into this butterfly effect kind of thing, if I hadn't failed those papers, I wouldn't have got into summer school, and I wouldn't have met all these amazing people that I called friends in summer school. And these friendships kind of grew throughout, because those were engineers as well, and we kind of helped each other, and we were all there just to learn. So it was an amazing experience. And another butterfly effect. So because I was in summer school, we were put into the biggest building, and because we were in summer school, we just said, can we stay in that building? And the people handling the dorms were like, yeah, you can stay. And so that kind of grew into wow, we're in the biggest building, and throughout our school time now, we get to meet new people. Being in that biggest building with the biggest floor, we had so many good like bonding relationships with other people from different types of schools and different mediums, different professions. So yeah, I loved university for its freedom, and it's given me the ability to grow even exponentially meeting all these people. So the first year of uni, I loved it. Although it wasn't even a year technically. So what happened was I studied software engineering at the University of Waikato, and I loved it. I felt like I was in my element. So coming from just learning how to code from digital technologies, computer science, that really gave me the building blocks to be able to succeed, because I knew prior experience from code. Because if you can learn to code in one language, it's similar to multiple languages, how you have the structure, the sentencing, the keywords, the syntax. Those translate over when you learn a new language. And at the time, I was learning discrete structures, which was Boolean algebra and set theory and logic, things like that. That was one of my favorite papers. And not only does it apply to IT or coding, it also applies to English. So that was transferable skills, because in psychology they kind of do a similar thing. It's set theory and Boolean algebra, which means true and false statements. And learning that actually helped me a lot, especially in sentencing structure. It applied not only to coding but to other things as well. So yeah, another paper that I loved was Engine 180. My understanding is that it helps you think like an engineer. So it taught things like interpersonal skills. It's a really good tool to be able to talk to anyone at their level. So their understanding, so like speaking simply and being not misunderstood, that's definitely something that I learned and fine-tuned, so that speaking clearly and speaking easily, so as to not be misunderstood. It also taught me things like estimation and guesstimation, so making a good guess pretty much. What it also taught me was finding the solutions in nature. So in my eyes, nature has been perfecting its craft for millions of years. If you want to look at perfection, look at nature. The things in nature, and things even like NASA, they look at nature all the time to find solutions to their problems. So to me, nature is perfect, or near perfect. You know, I was praying one day because things were going so well, and I asked God, "Hey God, I like my life, but I have no backstory." I think that was one of the biggest mistakes, because after that, my life turned around. When I said to God, "Hey, I like my life, but it's kind of boring. I don't have a backstory." Instantly, my life changed. So fast forward to the second semester. I'm taking the math papers, so calculus and algebra. I'm actually not sleeping now because I'm stressed out. I gotta get these exams, do well in them, and study hard for them. And that put a lot of pressure on me to succeed and do well. So I started not sleeping. I was finding it difficult to eat. And eventually, my parents came to the university and kind of just withdrew me. So essentially, they came to my dorm one day, the morning, woke me up and said, "Hey, what's going on?" And I went straight to the counselor on site, and she referred me to the mental health specialist because I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating, and my mind was racing. And going to the housing office, the dorms office, the person said to me, "You will get through this." In my head, I'm like, thanks. But why? Get through what? This was the beginning of my journey on mental health. So my mind was racing, my stomach was so tight. I felt like I had so much energy in me. I could get stuff done so fast. And this was the beginning of many manic episodes. And manic as in I have bipolar disorder. I've been dealing with bipolar disorder since that time, 2019. It's 2025 now, the end of. And I've been trying to deal with bipolar disorder for so long now. It gets hard, but it gets easier because I know a lot more now than I do back then. So, if you'd see my transcripts for the university, A+, A-, B+, or B, and then withdrawn. I pulled out at maybe 2 weeks after the semester began, or close to, maybe a month. This was the start. So, what am I now? I'm a university dropout. They put me into a very useful organization. They helped me get a job or prepare myself for a job straight out of uni. So no qualifications, but one thing that it led me to was warehousing and yard operations. So in this, we are aiming to get quickly trained in forklifts and warehousing and yard operations. So you should know how a warehouse works, operates, as well as get a forklift license at the end of it. And what I loved about this was that grades aren't really a thing. It's only a pass or fail. The highest grade you can get is a C, which is a pass. You only pass or fail. And during this time you do SDLs, which are self-directed learnings. And essentially it's just saying what you learned in that week. And you just fill out this booklet, and at the end of it, you should learn how to drive a forklift. So I'll have clips of this.
Who put that in?
And yeah, I learned how to drive a forklift before I had my restricted license. And what they also did was they paid for my restricted license, so thank you to them. That was actually absolutely amazing. So at the end of it, I did get my forklift OSH license, not F endorsed, but an OSH. And at the end of it, I learned how to drive a forklift, a counterbalance, and a reach, and then a pallet jack. 3 different ways of lifting a pallet, and also how to lift things properly, like manual handling. So yeah, it was an amazing environment because we were just there to help each other. We were there to learn how to drive a forklift, how warehouses operates, how they work, and it was such a good time. Like it was full of Maori, Pakeha, and Pacifica students, and I was like one of the only Asians, but that also helped me integrate into their kind of culture as well, because we learned so much just by talking with each other. And that's what my calculus class was missing. I wished we had talked with each other so many times. But alas, learning from others is definitely one of my biggest tools of learning. And yeah, it was kind of like a family environment where it's like we're just helping each other, and they give you food and they give you the PPE that you need. the protective equipment that you need to be able to get your safe operations done. So yeah, and then the next year comes around. I go into my first job, technically. It was a warehousing job, and it was driving a forklift as a forklift driver because I had my OSH. But I panicked because it was a completely different system. It was a reach, but it was a different kind of forklift. And my anxiety levels skyrocketed because I felt like I could not drive a forklift because it was so different. My anxiety was so high, and I kind of left the job burnt out, and it kind of sent me into a depression. This was my first really big depressive episode, and that goes well in tune with bipolar disorder. So there's mania, heaps of energy, heaps of willpower to do whatever you want, and there's the adverse effect of depression. I spent maybe 4 to 5 months just in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking, what do I do with life? It became existential because I was like, what is my purpose? Yeah, so I got so depressed because I didn't know what I was supposed to do in life. I was a dropout. I couldn't do what my training told me to do of how to operate a forklift. What is it in life that I'm meant to do? It even went down to the pits of self-harm. Like, I didn't do anything major, but I had planned it so hard that I kind of thought about, if I survived this, what would be the long-term side effects? And what I ended up doing was I told all of the plans to my psychiatrist. And at the time, that was brilliant because my parents just took away every ability for me to essentially end it. But I essentially came out of the depressive episode because I had so much support. The quote that comes to mind is, "My accomplishments are from the help of many." Coming out of that depressive episode kind of taught me something like, the meaning of life for me is to give life meaning. Your purpose in life is to find your purpose. Without meaningfulness, it's meaningless. So a great quote from Matthew McConaughey is, "I'm just living." Coming out of that depressive episode, I really needed to just put less pressure on myself to get things done and to a high standard. During my depressive episodes, I had access to psychotherapy, support work, and my parents. My parents made sure I was doing okay to just get by, really. Psychotherapy has taught me so much. At the time, I didn't know it, but it was kind of like one-on-one lectures. My psychotherapist is brilliant. He's amazing. He knows his stuff. He's a senior psychotherapist, and he's taught me many things that I have utilized and I will tell you about in this coming video. So yeah, I talked with my psychotherapist about my thinking. Catastrophic thinking, that was one of my major things, and perfectionism. So I try to get things perfect. That's just who I am. But it also makes you more stressed because, hey, I need to get this perfect. And then there's catastrophic thinking, like, if I don't do this, this will happen. And it's like, I kind of grew out from that kind of thinking now. And my psychotherapist taught me depression, although you can't see it, if it were to be like a physical illness, imagine you have a cast on, you broke your arm, it's there to rest. So depression, to me, is your body on low battery mode. It's trying to just get you to rest, as well as have the vitals at the minimum so that you can just keep going. What I talked about with my psychotherapist is, he told me it's like you have a cast on and you want your bone to just come back. And so what depression is your body just trying to rest because you've burnt out, essentially. Depression is having stress for too long and your body needs to rest. So after that depressive episode, I actually came out of it a lot better in terms of getting my mental health back on track and not burnt out from resting and just staring at the ceiling in my own thoughts all the time. So after that, the next year, I studied at Toyo Homai. It was just a level 4 in IT because I felt like I needed to get back on top of things. And essentially, what the level 4 did was give me the tools to set up for my IT in future. The level 4 of IT introduced me to Agile. It's a software development lifecycle in IT where you have these sprints, which is pretty much the time that you take to complete a specific workload. And I learned this thing called Kanban. It's a Kanban board. So instead of a to-do list where it's either done or not done, you have to do, doing, and done. So what that essentially helps you do is set focus on the present of what you're doing. So even though you have this big list of, oh, I have to do all this, you can just move a few things to the present of doing, and then eventually it'll get done. And if it doesn't get done, you put it back into the to-doing. So that helped me, especially with my time management, because instead of having all this big list of to-do, I'll focus on just a set, and I'll give myself this day, this day, this day, and essentially it set me up so that even in real life you can apply this. So you have your to-do, which is you're still yet to do, that's your future self. Your doing, which is your present self, what you're focusing on. And then your done, which is your past self. So your past self has actually done it. So the year was 2022. I had just finished with A+ on all of my assignments on IT. A level 4 to just bring me back to that space of, hey, I can actually do this. And a lot of the teaching, such as web page and agile software development, kind of transferred over to real life. So in the web pages, he was talking about how you can actually incorporate a business. And this business I called DIF. It stands for difference or differential or different. And what I wanted most was the title, CEO of DIF. It's got a nice ring to it. And that's essentially all I wanted. The company wasn't gonna be a real company. It was more, I'm testing the waters to see how far I can get this and what you can do with a company. I even set up a bank account for the company and just said, oh, okay, so this is how you store money as a business. And for that, you need quite a lot of things like an accountant, a lawyer, and stuff like that, which I didn't have access to, nor the money and funds to have those resources to actually use. But yeah, and that also landed me into respite and then into the mental health ward. And I actually love the mental health ward. To me, it's the cabin in the woods. I could just forget about life, put my life on pause whilst I was getting better. Within the ward, I had a manic episode, hospitalization, and I got to experiment with a lot of sleeping medication. I also met so many new people there, nurses, doctors, patients, and what I can say is, from that experience, I've learned a lot from people. People have a lot of experience, a lot of different experience from you. You can learn a lot from just talking with someone, from their experience, their learnings, their teachings, their understandings, their mistakes. If we're all made in the image of God, and God says to love thy neighbor, do it. If God is the representation of everyone and their personal selves, then you can learn a lot from talking to someone else. I've been in respite and the mental health ward many times, so twice for the mental health ward, and each time I've come out a better person for it. Although my manic episodes meant I slept less, I had heaps of energy, I felt so stressed, my body was trying to rest. That's what the mental health ward and respite was trying to achieve. Every time I go into respite, I am usually manic, have heaps of energy. And what I get done is get my sleep in check, get my medications in check, and just be overall healthier coming out of it. One of the main lessons that I'd learned from coming from the mental health ward is no one's really crazy. I think everyone's just misunderstood. When you say all these things very fast, very rapid, grandiose ideas, you just have to kind of understand where they're coming from. Look at their perspective and how you understand it, how they understand it. Meet in the middle. And from talking with so many mental health professionals as well as patients, I've learned so much. With bipolar disorder, coming from me, I've learned that there are book definitions of bipolar disorder where they say there's mania, so grandiose beliefs, high energy, less sleep. And then there's hypomania, where there's similar symptoms but not as pronounced. Normal, which is the baseline, what we're going for. And then there's the low and depressed. You can look up these yourself, but from my understanding, I think bipolar disorder is the unregulation of or dysregulation of the fight or flight response. When you look at fight or flight, your body is stressed. It's stress-induced fight or flight. And I think all my manic episodes and depressive episodes have come from stress. So fight or flight, what is it? Well, it's your body just in overdrive because there's a dangerous situation. Usually that's where fight or flight comes from. But for me, it comes from stress. All these books that I've read about bipolar disorder, and Kay Redfield Jamison, the lead psychiatrist of bipolar disorder who has bipolar disorder, she knows a lot. In her book, The Unquiet Mind, it to me gives me a sense of solace knowing that people are researching this all the time and giving their understandings. And this is just my understanding, that bipolar disorder is just the unregulated self, stress-induced fight or flight, and it's constant. So this is how bipolar feels, a manic episode. You pretty much have so much energy as long as you eat and drink. You require less sleep, so you're sleeping for 4 hours or none at all. You think you can do anything, absolutely anything. Your thoughts are grandiose because you can think you can do anything. Your ego, your self-esteem, so high. Hypomania is just a little lesser than that. And it doesn't require hospitalization, but both of them require medication to be normal. And then there's low mood, and then there's depression. Depression just feels like your body needs to rest. It's been burnt out. You've been stressed for too long. But it goes deeper than that, and you can feel it, and it hurts. You feel kind of hopeless. So how am I doing? I'm taking lithium, and I think I'll be taking it the rest of my life. To me, it's a wonder drug. We don't know how it works, but it works, especially for me. I love lithium. It just has to be at a safe level for me to digest and put into my bloodstream and stuff like that. So how did we find lithium? So lithium, it was found, like, looked over from Australia. I don't know if he was a doctor or a psychiatrist, but he was looking at how people were just happier when the lithium was in the water, because lithium is very prevalent in Australia and it seeps into the water. And he was thinking, why are these guys such in a good mood from having lithium in their water? And so that just translated over to modern day psychiatry. Lithium is the gold standard for bipolar disorder. And we don't know why it works, or yet to know why it works. You find lithium in batteries. So in a sense, I think it has something to do with our charge, our synapses firing, because our movement is all electricity, right? Synapses firing into your body and controlling your movements. So to me, I love lithium. I just need to have it at a safe dosage. So yeah, I think bipolar disorder is the unregulation or dysregulation of the fight or flight response. Your body is always and will be for that 1 or 2 weeks of just high performance, high need to get things done, grandiose beliefs, racing thought. That's how I describe a manic episode. You have heaps of energy, you think you can do anything, you think you can be prime minister, you think you can be president. And yeah, I've just been operating in this hypomanic state because I love fast thinking and getting things done fast. And yeah. So that concludes this video. Although it's all over the place, thanks for listening. Even though I'm probably waffled quite a bit. Yeah. Anyways, thanks for listening. Bye guys.